I wanted to go over a few housekeeping things before we actually begin the meeting today. Today we are offering ASL interpreting and also closed captioning in English for anyone who would like to use the services. In order to access the closed captioning, you want to look in your lower right-hand corner of your screen, and you're going to see where it says Multimedia Player. You want to click on that, and you'll probably see a box pop up with a blue oval that says Continue. You want to hit that box. That will open up and connect you to the closed captioning. You then want to hit on the bottom right-hand corner, teeny tiny type that says Show Hide Chat. That'll close the chat, and you'll be able to see the text starting to roll through. Above that, you can change the font size, the font color, and the type of font to whatever is most comfortable for you. In order to use ASL interpreting, you want to look at the top of the screen to the thumbnails. You want to find there's two different people that take turns. They're listed as ASL interpreter and then their name. And you want to go ahead and pin them so that they're always at the top of your screen. Looks like we still have a couple people joining, but if you guys want to start the meeting, I'll open the floor to you.
Thank you, Josie, and welcome everybody to the final meeting of the Autism Spectrum Advisory Board for 2021. Let me just review the agenda. I'm Courtney Burke, Chair of the Autism Spectrum Advisory Board. I'm going to review the agenda and then we'll come back to do introductions. So after our introductions today, we will have a presentation from the new Acting Commissioner for OPWDD, Carrie Neifeld, on the very important topic of investing in the workforce for OPWDD. Then we will have a discussion on our progress on board resolution number 11. And I believe that Mike Tripati will be helping to facilitate that conversation because of his involvement in the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services efforts around this. That will be followed by a presentation and discussion which will be, I think, the fun part of the meeting about a flag to represent neurodiversity strength. So our board member, Josh Mirsky, wants to bring this forward for our discussion. And finally, we'll have next steps and public comment to wrap up our meeting. So Greg, before we go around to do introductions, anything else for housekeeping that I should note?
No, I don't believe so, Chairperson Burke, other than at the end of the meeting, we hope to have a few minutes for public comment, and people could speak for 3 minutes, and that's, helpful. People can keep their comments to that time period. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Greg. And thanks for all you do, Greg, to support the work of the Autism Spectrum Advisory Board. Really appreciate it. And also thanks to our interpreters. I think the Elise and Maria, if I got that right, I hope, thank you for what you do. And our closed captioner, Kimberly. So I'm just going to do a quick little roll call, and I'm a little bit more adept at WebEx now than I probably was at the last meeting that we used it, now that we're all using all of these virtual tools more often. So I am able to see who's participating today, and it seems to be alphabetical by first name. So it starts with C. So I'm putting those folks whose first names start with C on notice that you're going to get called on to introduce yourselves. And the very first one is Salon Myers-Ruff. Salon, hopefully you heard that, and I gave you enough warning to say hello.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good morning. I'm Salon Myers-Ruff, Deputy Commissioner at the State Education Department for Adult Career and Continuing Education Services. Thank you.
Great to see you, Salon. Next on the list is Charles Massimo. And Charles, if you're talking, we can't hear you. You're still on mute. All right. Well, we will move to the next letter of the alphabet represented. It is D, which is Dixie Yonkers is next on the list.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Dixie Yonkers. I work in the communications office at OPWDD.
Great, thanks, Dixie. And next is Donna Bradbury.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Donna Bradbury. I serve as Associate Commissioner with the New York State Office of Mental Health in the newly created Office for Prevention and Health Initiatives. Good to see everybody.
That is great to hear. That's a new office. Prevention is important. All right. Greg, you're next on the list. You sort of introduced yourself, but if you wouldn't mind stating your title and role.
Yeah. So I'm Greg Roberts. I'm the Director of Legislative Intergovernmental Affairs for OPWDD. But my role here is to support the board, with just the basics of getting the board meeting off the ground and helping organize with the agendas.
Very much appreciated. All right, we're going to move on to the letter H and then J's. So our one and only H letter is Helen Yu. Helen, are you on today? You look like you're on. Okay, there we go. You're off mute.
Okay, good morning. I'm Helen Yu. I'm a researcher at the New York State Institute for Basic Research, which is the research arm of OPWDD here in Staten Island.
Great. Thank you, Helen. Now we'll move on to the J's. Jill Pettinger.
Good morning, everyone. Jill Pettinger with OPWDD. I'm Deputy Commissioner, and I oversee our state-operated programs and statewide services.
Okay, great. And Josh, you are next on the J's.
Okay, I'm Josh Mirsky. I'm a co-founder of Sounds Like Autism and lead production assistant at Spectrum Designs Foundation.
Great, and very much looking forward to your presentation today on the flag.
Thank you very much.
Next on the list are the K's. I'm not sure if this particular K has been able to join us yet, because I know she's a very busy woman. Carrie Neifeld, the new acting commissioner of OPWDD.
Morning, I'm here. Oh, sorry, I was double muted. It's Carrie Neifeld. I am not as adept at WebEx as you are, apparently, so I'm still getting used to it. But Carrie Neifeld, acting commissioner of OPWDD, and I'm happy to be here with you guys this morning.
Wonderful. Great to see you. Can't wait to hear your presentation. All right, moving on to M's. Mary Boatfield.
Hi, it's Mary Boatfield. I'm the CEO of Happiness House CP Rochester in the Finger Lakes.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Michael Gilberg, you are next on the list.
Sure. Sorry to have my video off, but it's one of those mornings. My name is Michael Gilberg. I'm a special ed attorney and self-advocate who was recently elevated from the self-advocate committee to the full board.
Wonderful, and wonderful to have you on the full board, Michael. Congratulations, by the way. All right, Mike Tripodi.
All right, hey everybody. Sorry, I also have to have my video off because currently at work and not in a place where I could have it on. My name is Mike Tripodi. I'm a disaster program specialist at the American Red Cross.
Wonderful, thank you, Mike. Now we're going to move on to the letter P, Patrick Paul. Patrick, you're still on mute if you are speaking. All right, well, we'll move on to Robert Myers. All right, well, I saw Patrick was able, yeah, I saw you went off mute, so good.
I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties, so I also don't have my camera on. Hopefully I'll have it on in a few minutes. I'm Patrick Paul, Executive Director at Anderson Center for Autism and on the board.
Excellent. All right, thanks, Patrick. And Robert Myers. No, Robert was able to get off mute. Maybe he's double muted. I don't know. Either way, Robert, thanks for joining us. Looks like we got two more to go. Steve Katz.
Hello, I'm Steve Katz. I run a small nonprofit in New York City called Aspens for Social Success. And I am on the advisory board, the Asd Advocates Advisory Board.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us again today. And last but not least, Vicky Hiffa.
Good morning, everyone. Vicki Haifa. I'm the Acting Executive Director for the New York State Developmental Disabilities Planning Council.
Great. It is possible I missed somebody. Is there anybody that I missed during the introductions? Okay. I do like to do that. I know sometimes people feel that introductions are tedious, but we have such a diverse board of so many well-qualified people. And this is also Commissioner Neifeld's first meeting, so I felt it was important for her to see the diversity of representation on the board. So great. Welcome again, everybody. And I had the chance to, again, congratulate Michael Gilberg, who had been previously part of our advocate subcommittee and is now part of our regular board. So if anybody should have any questions during the meeting, I wanted to just reiterate that there is a website that OPWDD uses for all of the materials and information related to the advisory board. It is Asd Advisory Board at opwdd.ny.gov. So again, Asd Advisory Board at opwdd.ny.gov. So now I'm going to turn it over after a short introduction to Carrie Neifeld. So let me just give a little background for those folks who have not met her yet. On November 17th, Governor Kathy Hochul announced that OPWDD will provide over $1.5 billion in one-time American Rescue Plan Act funding to support recruitment efforts, retention incentives, and vaccination bonuses for direct support professionals who provide support for people with developmental disabilities in an effort to address workforce shortages in the field. And so joining the board today to discuss this important workforce investment is Acting Commissioner Carrie Neifeld. On November 1st, Carrie was named Acting Commissioner. She previously served as Assistant Secretary for Human Services and Mental Hygiene in the Governor's Office and as Assistant Deputy Commissioner at the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. She also has hands-on experience as a case manager and understands the differences that high-quality supports and services can make in people's lives. Commissioner Neifeld holds a BA from Elmira College and an MSW from the University of Albany School of Social Welfare. And it's a pleasure to be able to introduce her. I watched Carrie's career. She's incredibly talented. I think it's wonderful that she's been named to this position. So welcome, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you, Courtney, and thank you to everyone on the board for having me here this morning. I'm happy to be with you and certainly happy to talk about the incredible opportunity that we have to invest in our direct support workforce, and also just in general to get to know a little bit more about the activities of the board and the priorities and the recommendations that you have put forward in the past and will be putting forward in the future. So like Courtney said, I'll go into a little bit of my background since I'm so new. A lot of folks on this call I haven't had the opportunity to spend much time with yet, but hopefully that will change. So like Courtney said, my background is in social work. I have, since I graduated from college with my bachelor's, worked in, sort of the larger human services, mental health field, in some way, shape, or form, starting, at a direct care level, doing direct support work and also, case management in various community residences. I spent a lot of time working in the child welfare system with families and children in need of additional support, and also working with adults in the homeless system. So I come from a career and a background of working directly with people to provide the additional supports and services needed for folks to help, succeed in whatever way they want to in their life. And so when I started working with OPWDD while I was in the governor's office, I very quickly, had a strong affinity for this agency and this work, and really sort of fell in love with the work. And part of what I love so much about this agency and the work that it does is the larger community that surrounds this agency, and the opportunity for this agency to really be an advocate in government on behalf of the folks that it serves, self-advocates, family members, service providers, and all the, the sort of the various people and players who make up our larger community. And I think what's so unique about this community is how involved and active the larger stakeholder community is. And I see that as a positive, as a bonus, as something that makes this agency stronger, because of the strength of its stakeholders and because of the organization of its stakeholders. And so I'm really grateful to be here in this position and happy to be able to participate today and in the future with the important work that the board does. So like Courtney mentioned, around mid-November, the governor made a press release announcing that the federal government had approved our plan to invest $1.5 billion into the workforce. That investment consists of two different opportunities to infuse into the direct support professionals right into their base salary. So it provides an opportunity for us to raise the base wage for direct support professionals, and then also offers two opportunities for bonuses. So there's a one-time bonus in the amount of $1,000. That is it's $1,000 for full-time, so it's prorated based on the amount of hours that an individual works, but maximum of $1,000 for individuals who were working throughout the pandemic, and then a maximum of $500 as a vaccine bonus to help incentivize staff to take the vaccine. As we know, vaccination is probably the most powerful tool that we have in our toolkit, and as we're looking at additional winter spikes, we're looking at the spread of the Omicron variant now. It's another opportunity for us to stress the importance of the vaccine. We're seeing through the data, early data, especially on Omicron, is that people are most protected when they have a primary vaccine series and a booster. So we're really working, to continue to stress that. And I think having the opportunity to incentivize vaccines through the $500 bonus is a great tool that we have in the toolkit. There are lots of reasons that people are hesitant to accept the vaccine, and we are, in addition to the incentive payment, also have a whole toolkit of educational and campaign materials around vaccine in particular and education on vaccine. I think we know that the staff who come into the homes to serve people in group homes, them protecting themselves is another way that we can help to protect the people that we serve. So this vaccine bonus helps us to do that. Certainly, it's not just for staff who work in group homes, but also who work in self-directed programs and in day programs and other direct support areas. So we're very excited to have the opportunity. And so I think that, when we think about our system, OPWDD in general, I think we are at a point where we are looking to expand the opportunities that we provide to people in terms of residential, looking at opportunities to do expanded day programming, different types of day programming, and the workforce is the backbone of everything that we want to do. So the ability to infuse this large level of money, $1.5 billion, into our workforce is a huge opportunity. These federal dollars are one-time dollars. And we are working with our colleagues in the executive chamber and at the division of the budget, and certainly our partners in the legislature, to have meaningful conversations around how we can permanentize some of these investments and build off of them. I think it's important to note that the $1.5 billion that comes from the federal government is for our voluntary sector only. So our state-operated programs are not the beneficiaries of that federal funding, but we obviously value the work that is done in our state-operated system as well. And so working with, again, our colleagues in the executive chamber and the division of the budget and the legislature to make sure that we are also able to better support our state-operated workforce, and through some of the financial incentives, express our gratitude for the amount of work that's happened over the past 2 years. I think we know that going into the pandemic, we were already at a critical point with our workforce, and I think the pandemic exacerbated that. It shined a light on areas that were already weak, and you can start to sort of see the light through the cracks. And so I think if there is a silver lining to the pandemic, it is that this opportunity, to really highlight how integral to everything we do our direct support professionals are, and to take what was a growing and escalating problem, and to really be able, to highlight, without investments, without infusions into our workforce, everything that we want to do from a policy perspective, from a service perspective, from a supports perspective, everything is much more difficult when we don't have a strong foundation of workforce. And here at OPW, we have a lot of very exciting ideas for how we want to shift our programs. And the conversation always comes back to workforce and needing to make sure that we shore up our workforce to be able to go out and to do the best that we can to provide, really person-centered supports, community integrated supports, and supports that allow people to achieve at every level that they want to, including in their employment opportunities, educational opportunities, and housing opportunities. So, and I think, the only thing that I would say about that, is that all of those exciting and progressive and creative ideas that we have for providing services is something that, is our intention is to be collaborative and cooperative and integrated with our community when doing that. So the input of our providers, the input of self-advocates, the input of family members is critical to, policies and initiatives, advanced by OPW being successful. And so we're very, very grateful for the partnership that we have. Some of the other ways that we'll be spending some of that federal dollars, not necessarily directed at workforce, but directed around some of these more exciting policy initiatives that we've been talking about, is looking into our self-direction program, how we can streamline, update, and make more relevant our self-direction program so that it's more accessible, easier to navigate, and provide supports to more people. Self-direction is increasingly becoming, a more and more popular option for people when accessing services, and we want to make sure that that is a resource that's available going forward and also is easily accessible for people, especially for people who maybe don't have family members who are as involved, who can help, with the navigation. We're also looking at investments in our housing continuum and, looking to incentivize providers to make available more integrated and more community-based residential and housing options for people who desire them, trying to look beyond just the opportunities provided through group homes and think about, individual apartments, individual homes, and ways that we can help support people to be successful in those types of environments. And then the last thing that I'll touch on, and I think it also touches on the workforce, is our sort of strategic planning efforts. Over the summer, some of you may have been involved in stakeholder engagement around OPW's 507 planning process and our strategic planning process. And, what we're looking to do, obviously the work of the day, is all consuming, and there's so much going on every day that requires our attention. But, an agency that fails to plan for the future, is leaving open, a very sort of wide gap in what we're supposed to be doing. So we're also at the same time as, being very busy, working on the issues of the day, turning an eye to the future, and through our strategic planning process, laying out a roadmap for where we want the agency and the sector to move over the course of the next 5 years. And again, that plan is being drafted based heavily on the input of our stakeholders that was collected over the summer throughout multiple planning processes, engagement processes, phone calls, emails. And so what we'll be putting forward will be a draft plan for our community to comment on, but that will really lay out a roadmap for where we want to go over the course of the next several years. And that's a roadmap that we can all then kind of go back to when we're looking at the direction that we're moving in. Is it in line with the planning that we laid out? Is it in line with what we all agreed we wanted to do? Is this our number 1 priority, or is this our number 6 priority? And we'll have the ability to sort of pace ourselves and take the next right steps, and then obviously hold ourselves and our community accountable to moving forward, together and progressing together, so that we can just continue to do the best that we can to provide the right supports and services in a way that folks can access them, that's relevant for their lives, and sort of helps them to achieve their goals. And I think what's really important for me and for the agency is making sure that people understand that no goal is too big. There's no idea that, that is, out of the realm of possibility. It's just a matter of how can we wrap the right supports and services around a person to help them achieve that. And I think that's the strong mission of this agency, and we can't do that without our partners. And that's why we're so grateful for the strong partnerships that exist. So I know that didn't take up the full allotted agenda time, Courtney, and I'm sorry to upend your agenda, but that's essentially the sort of the workforce component and some of the big top ideas that we're working on now at OPW.
No, I think it's great that you were able to present. It was a very comprehensive strategic planning process. So I think it's great to hear about that. And I wanted to open up to other board members, if you're willing, Carrie. I'm hoping that they have either questions or feedback or just positive reinforcements that they're supportive of what's going on. I certainly think that it's tremendous, and the workforce is so critical to OPWDD. So this kind of support is somewhat overdue, and it sounds like it's been well thought out how it's going to be targeted. So I just wanted to ask any of my fellow board members if they wanted to comment or had any questions.
Courtney, hi, this is Charlie Massimo.
Charles, good to hear from you. Charlie, great to see you.
You too, thank you. Yeah, same here. Commissioner, it's really a pleasure to meet you, and excited that you took the time to be on this call. And everything you've outlined is incredibly exciting, especially when you talk about alternative housing solutions and self-direction. As you mentioned, it's a long and tedious process. So streamlining that, I think, is really, really important for so many families. The other question I have, with some of those dollars, the reality is that because there's so much of a shortage in direct support, people are just willing to take bodies just to provide that support. Is there any talk about providing any advanced training or any incentives for any type of advanced training that direct support professionals may take?
Sure, that's a great question. There's a few things that I'll touch on, and then Greg, who's also on the call, can fill in any of the blanks if I miss anything. I think one of the big things that we're working on, with our colleagues in different agencies is the conversation and the topic of credentialing, and really looking to help direct support professionals be elevated in their professional status, provide them with that extra incentive and opportunity to seek some additional training, to seek some additional credentialing, additional coursework, to really elevate the role of the individual. I think there's a couple of things here. 10 years ago, right, DSPs were paid at a rate much higher than minimum wage. Over the course of time, various factors, the increase in minimum wage, challenges with our budget over the last decade or so, have kind of created this compression effect where we are now on par with other individuals. And so or with other, institutions like fast food and, Target and Lowe's. I mean, sometimes their hiring rates are very competitive with ours. And so when you're on the job market, and especially in the job market like we have today, where an individual can really get any job that they want to right now because people are so desperate, you're faced with, do I want to go be a direct support professional? Do I want to go work at Target? Do I want to go work at, whatever? And I think the job, the direct support professional job, although it's incredibly rewarding, it is a labor of love. Just speaking from someone who's worked in and out of the field of, the larger field my whole life, it's an avocation, right? But it's also challenging. It's emotionally taxing. It's physically taxing. The hours are long, especially when we're in a shortage like we're in today, right? Where there's double overtime shifts and things like that. It can be very difficult to convince someone that they want to come do this job, that they'll enjoy it, that it will be good for them. So I think, we have to do those extra things. We have to figure out, through apprenticeship programs, through mentorship programs, how to really support people to feel like they, can do the job, that they can continue to show up every day, especially in the face of easier choices, right? It would be easier to go stock shelves at Target probably. But we have to, because the job is so fulfilling and so meaningful, we want to be able to support people to continue to be able to do that, because people that take these jobs do it because they want to, right? So yes, that kind of support, mentoring, apprenticeship, support through credentialing, so that, there is a professionalization of the field, and we can create a career ladder. We can create a pathway for people who want to enter at the direct support level, but work up through management and, manage a home, manage a program, go into administration. We want people to see that there is a pathway here. We're working with SUNY and with BOCES also, to pilot some programs to help create a pipeline, but also a pipeline of people who are well-trained and well-supported. So, BOCES, we've had a couple of pilots with some BOCES to be getting kids, who are completing high school, to be doing a lot of the training and the education ahead of time, and then work their way into an employment situation with one of our providers or in our state-operated system. And same with CUNY, working on providing coursework at some of the educational opportunity centers across the state that would be free to the employee, but would be germane to the work that they're doing and would help continue to elevate that professionalism and give them that extra edge.
Great points, Charles. Thank you.
Very much.
If I can just speak a second to Carrie. I very much appreciate your breath of fresh air. I think we all have to just really admit that we're underpaying our direct support professionals. I know you know this, and I've heard you speak before, and you're everywhere, by the way. Thank you. I don't think there's much we can do until we raise that wage level. It's great about career tracks. It's great about all the other things that are being planned about advertising. But we have staff that leave crying because they don't really want to leave, but they still got to pay their bill. And I think that they would stay if they can get somewhere close to a decent amount, because they have kids to take care of, and they have rent that's going up, and gas is up, and food is up, and supply chain issues are impacting them. So I know you know this. I'm just reiterating it. I think it's important that in your beginning discussion, you talked about the fact that you need to go back and we need to talk about the base wage for the folks who support the vulnerable individuals that we have in our care.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what I would like to add is just that is how lucky we are to be in a time where we have a supportive executive, right? When I think some of I was blissfully at home, hanging out with my baby, enjoying a summer vacation when, the governor and I talked about me taking this opportunity. And what excited me so much about re-entering the workforce, and specifically in this position, is that we have a governor who is asking me the right questions, who is saying to me, how can we better support the people that are doing this work? How can we better support the people that we're serving? How do we provide better educational opportunities? How do we provide better, employment opportunities for the people that we're serving? And she completely got it. And so she, I think we're so lucky to have an executive, and then she has an executive team as well that really understands it. So I am, obviously, nothing's over until we see the budget, and we want to see it in black and white. And so I would encourage everybody to continue, your very important advocacy efforts. But I do feel very hopeful that because we have, a governor who values this field and values this work, that we will see, we will see a return, and we will see, her put her money where her mouth is. I believe in that, and I have a lot of hope for that.
I think you said the right thing, hope. I think we have more hope now. So thank you very much.
Great. Any other questions or comments for the commissioner?
Yes. Is there any work being done to help streamline the application process for funding and services for individuals? I applied for self-direction originally in 2018, and my budget was just approved in 2021. Now, I appreciate that in the middle, there was the offices were closed for about a year, but nonetheless, even taking that into account, we're still talking like 3 years. I mean, I run support groups, and my members complain, well, they're trying to apply for, just get to, past the, the open door session, and they're applying and applying. They can't even get the first step for months, if not years. And they're, especially for folks on the spectrum where it is a spectrum. So yeah, there are people who have a lot of difficulty with everyday tasks, but there are a lot of us that, do quite well, and just need help with, in my case, I happen to be doing self-direction, so a little rough around the edges here and there. So the process can be especially slow for us that are just out in the world.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question, and it's a good question. There's a couple of things. Absolutely, a pandemic in the middle of your application period, I'm sure affected the turnaround time. But something else that we've been struggling with over the last several years is a hiring freeze at the state level. And so, we've had a real challenge in processing those budgets and the budget requests. So we have, under the new administration, the hiring freeze has been lifted, and we are onboarding new staff very quickly to be able to serve exactly that purpose, processing those budgets. So I do expect that going forward, we will see a faster processing time. But I appreciate you mentioning it. You're not the first person who's mentioned it, so I'm going to make a note to myself to have that be something that I personally monitor and make sure that we really are, increasing our output in that area, because I think it's important, and it's not okay for people to wait 3 years for their budget to be approved, because that's 3 years that you're not able to access services.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions or comments for the commissioner? Okay, well, one last comment, Carrie. Thank you again for joining us today. One of the things you said about the new governor is that she was asking you the right questions, but I also think that my experience with her is that she listens and acts. So like you, I have a lot of hope about what's possible in the future. So thank you so much again for joining us. Wishing you the best of luck and happy holidays and everything else. So thank you.
I'm going to stay on and listen. I'm just going to turn my camera off.
All right, great. Thank you. So next on our agenda is a board discussion on progress related to Resolution 11. And I mentioned this when we kicked off the meeting, that our board member, Mike Tripodi, has participated in meetings with the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services regarding the updating of the Citizens Preparedness Corps. So he was going to give us an update on his experience and what the latest is in relation to our board recommendation. Mike?
All right. Hey, everybody. It's Mike. I was able to turn my camera on because my other chaotic scene behind me kind of stopped. As you can imagine, we're kind of busy with all the tornadoes and everything going on out west. So we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. We between OPWDD, Barbara from Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, and myself, and we discussed about the so the Citizens Preparedness Corps is a presentation and a program that promotes community preparedness, individual preparedness, and there's a couple different components. There's a handbook that's produced by the state. That was what our discussion was mostly about, because that was coming up for print. So we actually were able to have a very productive conversation about modifying the handbook, and then once the PowerPoints and the new training comes out, there's going to be some modifications to those also, to really create a more inclusive section on like individual disabilities. We got rid of some outdated language, some of that could be considered somewhat offensive, just because we were able to get out of, and we also got rid of like the term special needs, and we replaced it with more inclusive language. We also modified a lot of it to be able to some options. So it's tough in the handbook and in the presentation to really do specific about like, hey, for each like type of disability or for each type of situation a person might be living in. So like, for example, if you live in an apartment or a house, or there's different the presentation is already a very long presentation for a preparedness presentation. It already runs over an hour. So we were looking at what can we do to really change some of that wording, and like for example, we were able to making sure that people also like when they build a preparedness kit, do you have your medication? Do you have any durable medical equipment that you might need? Do you have any sensory items? So, and we gave a couple like examples like that, like if you need a fidget or headphones. Like for example, in my kit, I always have my headphones and I have a backup for my headphones. Um, so kind of making it that more inclusive, and um, so that way it's more useful for a broader spectrum of people, and it does also make sure that it does have information um, about the disability community, and also to making it a little more accessible. Like, so some of the wording that was a little jargony was also, we also got rid of that. And it was I think Greg, you said it was one of the most productive government conversations you've had. Yeah, we actually got a lot done over the hour that we met, and it's out in proofing and going to be printed with the new with the new information. And then as we go to as the PowerPoints and the lessons get modified, we'll also be weaving in some of that, the language, and also some of the examples and stuff like that. So
Great, great. That's such good progress, and appreciate you helping the advisory board actually implement some of the very good recommendations that we've made in the past. So I really appreciate your work. Does anybody have any questions for Mike? No? All right. Well, thanks for your great work, Mike, in the presentation today. Really appreciate it. Moving on to our next agenda item, we will be calling on Josh Mirsky. Josh has a very exciting proposal for the board to consider today, which is related to a flag to represent neurodiversity. He would like to get our ideas on the concept generally, what the flag might look like, and get our feedback. So Mike, turn it over to you. Or sorry, Josh, turn it over to you.
All right, well, thank you, and thank you all for being here, first of all. All right, so a while ago, I was thinking, I was looking at a pride flag, and I was like, this is, first of all, this is a beautiful flag. It's vibrant. It's very memorable. It's when you see it, you instantly know what it means, right? We all know what it means, a pride flag. But I was looking like, how come there's none for neurodiversity? So I did research. There's one in Nova Scotia, but I doubt anyone's heard of it because no one really talks about it. So that really, realistically, that doesn't do anything. Then there are ones online which people make, but there's no validity to it in the sense that no state recognizes it. There's no state board which recognizes it. So like in actuality, really, it doesn't do anything. Then I'm always on different forums like on Instagram and stuff, and I'm active in the autism online community. And I always remember, and this is very sad. And also kind of upsets me greatly when I see this. April, everyone here is like, oh yeah, April, Autism Awareness Month, Autism Acceptance Month, Light It Up Blue. But then you read it and everyone's like, okay guys, it's gonna be Autism Acceptance Month. If you see a puzzle piece, try not to get triggered. Please don't yell people for it in blue, because a lot of these people who, again, cannot communicate and are not given the opportunity or the platform to, find the puzzle piece beyond offensive, find blue beyond offensive. And there's a whole big reason into that. But if you look into the history of Autism Speaks, and look back at their old commercials, just for one of the many examples, you will understand exactly why. I encourage all of you to do that. And then, because I could say here, but it won't have the same effect. It's sad because society keeps saying, yeah, this is your month, this is your month. But then society also says, this is your symbol, this is your color. So it is like, in a sense, societal ableism. I don't even know if that's an official term, but it should be. Societal ableism, where there's like, okay, this is your color, this is your symbol, take it and leave it. The White House, what does it turn blue? Now, if people were actually take the time to look at the actually autistic community, you would see people identify mainly with these colors, red and gold. These are the two main colors that autistic people identify with it. They also identify with overall the infinity symbol instead of the puzzle piece. But yet, mainstream society still says, "Oh, we should do the puzzle piece," and they do that. They give themselves a pat on the back. Okay, we're good. April's over. Okay, we're done. That's not okay. And because honestly, you're hurting the community way more by doing that. So, and then 2020 happened, and what happened is what I call the second pandemic, which is the rapid decay of hope and declining mental health in the country and the world. And with that, I've heard many cases of mass depression. I've suffered from it, and lots of things, and that's also horrible. And then with autism, change is horrible, right? We all know autism change, don't go well together like water and oil. So you get them, like, for example, I'm just going to use one minute, like you have mask mandate, the no mask mandate, constant change, and there's no certainty. That's just one of many different changes. So we have all of this. So I thought, well, there has to be some light at the end of the tunnel. There has to be something. It can't just be all doom and gloom. So I came up with this, which I made to symbolize strength. Because what's really missing here is the reminder that this community is a very strong community, resilient, and like we have been, people talk down to us, ignorance and stuff, but that, what, like in life, it's not what happens to you, it's how you interpret it. So that stuff makes us stronger. It's kind of like you have a beautiful stained glass window. How do we make the stained glass window? Through fire. Is that fire good and friendly? No. Is a fire fun? Absolutely not. But beautiful things come out of it, and that's our strength. And we need a flag which will show that. So these colors are very vibrant, the bright red, the gold, and the way it is, and it's striking. You remember that. I just showed it for a couple of seconds, and I guarantee you, in 5 days' time, you think back, you're going to remember that vividly. You're going to remember that because it's striking, it's vivid, and it's almost hypnotic in a sense how it's set up. And that's what we need. We need people to remember that they're strong, remember the community is strong. We need people to realize, yes, this is a way to take back April, like almost like a campaign, like we are going to reclaim April. Because right now, according to many, April's been like, no pun intended, like hijacked by a massive nonprofit, which again, just look at the past videos and you will see is not as friendly as one would think. And if you look on their boards, look on everything. There are no autism people on there. If so for someone super autism friendly, I mean, there's a lot of autism missing in there. If you trace the money, you'll just, again, I invite you to do this. You'll see, hey, where's all the money going? And I guarantee it's not as much of it's going to autism people as you would think. So, with all these said, like, I think the community wants to reclaim April. I happen to have this platform, and I want to use it to help kickstart that for the community, because it's not just in New York. First of all, I hear things all the way in Washington, like, because I have been talking to people recently, like I've showed them this flag. I've showed people in Washington State. I've showed people in England, all over the place. Everyone, they're always the same. Wow, that's wrong. Yes, we need to do this. This is not just New York. New York's just like the kicking off point. But New York's where everything starts. And New York is, as the slogan goes, the state of opportunity. But we need to put some like muscle on that bone, or else it's just a hollow slogan. And I really think this is a huge opportunity to do that and inject some much needed hope and, quite frankly, action to this. So this April can be the first April which autistic people will genuinely celebrate.
So Josh, first of all, let me just say it's awesome that you came up with this idea. And even though you only showed it for a couple seconds, I was gonna say you might want to see it again, but it's bold. I love the red. I love the gold. It's memorable, like you said, which I think is important. So when people see it, they know what it is.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what others thought. It's okay to, I guess it's okay. You'll take suggestions if people have ideas.
Yeah, actually, I encourage that, because I remember Greg, we were talking, remember on the phone a couple nights ago, and we were discussing how we could have this campaign, and this will get people really normalizing them, communicating to us through the email. And then, because one of the things which is important is also to create the board, have it be accessible to people, because most people don't even know we exist. But by having us be accessible, it'll be kind of socially almost cool in a sense to contact their board. Then we could do an Instagram, Facebook, possibly LinkedIn, all this stuff, and it'll become socially acceptable. And when something's socially acceptable, that's how it spreads like wildfire. Then that's like free advertising. So this can be a huge segue, so we could get lots of birds with one stone, as the saying goes.
So I'm going to turn to the members of the board. Your thoughts on pursuing this.
So Josh, this is Vicki Haifa from the Developmental Disabilities Planning Council, and I love this idea also. The only suggestion I'm thinking is, do we want to maybe think about doing the colors of the rainbow? Just because, as you know, there's such diversity on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, so maybe having the colors of the rainbow rather than just red and gold. But other than that, I think it's great. I love the idea.
I saw that originally, and I mean, maybe we could add a little bit of it, but my big fear is, like, I don't want to take away from the pride flag, because if we have too many rainbows, like, it's gonna take away from that, like what I said in the beginning, the boldness. Like, when you see the pride flag, you just think of it, and it's like oversaturating the market. If you put too many like yellow slogans around the McDonald's arch, eventually that McDonald's arch does not have as big of a striking effect, that bold effect. When you see it, I mean, you think burger, you think pot. Some people might think scary clown, some people might think it's a happy clown, but Ronald McDonald the clown. So so we think clown, burger, and yummy food. But if you have too much of it, it's like oversaturating the market with everything else. So that's what if we could do it in a way which it would not like overdo the flag, yeah, I think that's awesome. But my biggest fear is I don't want to like take away from that community and how that flag just sticks out, because that flag's beautiful and it sticks out like a sore thumb unapologetically, and it's beautiful. That's a beautiful sore thumb. Just everything.
So this is Greg. I just want to say, from a process perspective, I think there are kind of two separate questions to help frame the board discussion, or how this could move forward. Number one is, does the board think it's appropriate to try and identify a flag to begin with, for all the reasons that Josh had mentioned, or is it not so good of an idea, and that would be a board decision. And I think number two, if the board decided that there was a way to move forward, I think from them there would need to be some sort of a way to solicit ideas, Vicki, such as yours and others from the public, so that a lot more people can have a chance to solicit ideas. Perhaps if we can get ideas sent in to the Autism Board, we can perhaps at a future meeting show them and set up some way that people could vote or help select or discuss it, so that, as Josh mentioned, to be inclusive. So if that helps discussion, I think it's a two-step process. Is this what the board wants or not? And then if so, which one? So thank you.
Go ahead. This is Mary Boatfield. Josh, I think it's a great idea. But I do agree with Greg. I think maybe number two, where looking to solicit some ideas. And I have, a really good designer at my agency that could help maybe develop some prototypes once we take this out to our board and to the public. And I'm more than willing to help if that's obviously what the direction the board wants to go in.
That sounds amazing. Thank you for offering that.
This is Salon. I think it's great. I like the idea of input, but I want to go back, Josh, to your point about ableism, right? Yeah. So I think the input should come from the autism community.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts from board members? So I think, Greg, to your point, I think there seems to be support for moving this forward, and just making sure that it's an inclusive process, allow some way for some additional input, or maybe some voting on designs, or some eventually something like that. Yeah. I mean, I'm so excited about the prospect of someday seeing this flying somewhere. I think it's really great that you've done this. Any other thoughts for Josh?
Hey, it's Mike. Well, yeah, and I guess my concern, I like the design. If we're gonna bring this to voting and design, again, as Josh alluded to, like, being autistic and just kind of having symbols and stuff just kind of forced upon you. I think there really needs to be a conscious effort that if this is going to be opened up for voting and stuff like that, it needs to be actually autistic people voting on it.
Yeah, I like that.
It needs to come from us. Like it's, just speaking as somebody who's autistic, somebody with a disability, so many people speak for us or force us into, using person first language. A lot of us prefer identity first, because I'm autistic as part of who I am, it colors my whole life and everything I do. And that's the way I want to be identified. But then I have somebody who, I'm doing a training about disabilities and how you need to be more inclusive. And I say, I'm autistic. And I get, no, you need to use person first language. You have to be a person with autism. No, I'm not. I'm not. Autism is not something that it's part of everything that I do. It's me. It's part of my identity, and it's, um, so there really has to be a mechanism that it needs to come from the community, um, you know, not be, kind of forced upon us or have something that's chosen that is not the will um, of autistic folks.
I fully agree with that. Like, I mean, again, that's like with the Autism Speaks thing. Like, we had that puzzle piece forced upon us. It was kind of like just the default. Yes, this is your symbol. This is your color. So, yeah, I really like that point.
Hey, Josh. First of all, I really applaud your enthusiasm, and Mike, I think you bring up some wonderful points, and I think there's so much that goes into this. I mean, Josh, you presented some great colors, vibrant colors, but there's so many things that, for instance, you brought up the McDonald's sign, right? When somebody sees McDonald's, everybody's going to have their own idea what that sign means to them. And I think we got to be really, really important if we're going to go down this path, do it correctly, because everybody's going to interpret things the way they want to interpret it. So we have to be really careful that when we come, if we go down this path, that what do we want people like you and Mike, when someone sees this flag, what do you hope they visualize? What do you want them to see in this flag? And then I think we kind of have to take it from there and understand what we want people's reaction to be from this flag.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the like personal thing for me is like pretty much it's to revitalize the strength, especially after like the events in 2020. It's like how like a shot of like revitalizing your strength and like remembering that this is a huge, diverse, and proud community, and we shouldn't like just accept having a color or a puzzle piece put on us if we don't want it. We gotta like we could like do something about it, and we're not just gonna accept it as like our default and this is the way it is. We could change stuff because we have numbers and strength in numbers, and also we've been through a lot. So like honestly, the stuff which we've been through in our own personal lives is way harder than I think changing that puzzle piece, pushing it aside, and making our own statement, our own thing.
Josh, I think it's a great idea. I think the devil's going to be in the detail of the process. So I think we just have to figure out what process you're going to go about getting that input from people from the community in order to help come to that conclusion, whatever that is. And I think you might have to struggle, and everybody's going to struggle with people having a lot of different ideas. So so I think it's a great idea, though. The concept is brilliant. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
So I guess, Greg, I think there was a lot of good input today, and we'll have to dig into the details, probably not the appropriate place for this meeting, but dig into the details of what that process looks like to make sure it's inclusive and that it definitely is driven by people with autism.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Burke. What I think I will take back from here and consult with other colleagues as well as the board. They'll send out an email solicitation, and let's try and figure out if there's a couple of paths that might work so that we can be inclusive and get input from people, not only initial design but then voting, or however it is decided that the will of of the autism community is this. So I think slow, steady will produce probably a better product in the end. And I think this can tie in very nicely with what the board had discussed last time, which was a way to step up social media or bring awareness to the board and the board's activities. Perhaps adding a web page for the board or Snapchat or Instagram, I believe was what had been possibly discussed. And it might be a way to introduce the board and the idea of this flag to the public together, and build some attention from there. I think we, as Patrick said, let's do it slow. A lot of input from people so that we can get it right.
Absolutely, this is really exciting. Thanks so much, Josh. This is very cool. I'm looking forward to our next meeting in April. So with that, I think the only remaining thing on our agenda would be next steps, which is I know we have a regular meeting scheduled for April, and we clearly have some follow-up items from today. But I believe we're going to open it up for public comment at this point. And I can't see if there are folks who are commenting, so I'm going to have to rely on Josie or Greg to let me know if there's people in the queue.
Usually I will call on people who put their hands up, members of the public with their hands up, and currently we do not have any. So if there's any members of the public that would like to speak, if you can put your virtual hand up. Oh, we have one person. We have Ralph Warren. Ralph, you're unmuted and you can speak.
Okay, yes, hi, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, yeah, I'm not bothering with the video. I'm not sure if it'll work here. So, yes, I have a specific request, actually. I followed the things with the board since the beginning. I feel like some of our concerns in the beginning in the autism community regarding complex medical needs were not really ever addressed. So this is more pressing now for some obvious reasons, I think. But it really comes to a head, and I hope the new acting commissioner is with us still. It comes to a head with some of the initiatives that are being used for the FMAP funding. Well, I guess you guys will realize maybe I know some of you, like Greg, obviously. I know Steve, I know Josh. So my request is essentially comes down to this. I would hope in the next 3 months or 6 months that the topic be arranged so that members in the autism community that use OPWD services will be able to speak on or give feedback on the assessments of need going forward with the assessment of need instruments being developed by the department, specifically with regard to complex medical needs. But we need to drill down on that. And if Dr. Pettinger is still on the call, I hope some of you are following the details of this. And, as of a year and a half ago, the last that we've seen in other public forums is that OPWD is, proceeding with internal utilization management, starting with self-direction, starting with ComHab for those not having it yet. We need to make sure that new research on autism and how it's evaluated gets brought into these instruments, and people's real experience, like Steve had mentioned earlier, is not getting addressed. So I'd like to get some feedback as to how we can present this to who in the board, write it up, make a request, and that's what I'd like to voice today.
So Ralph, this is Greg. I do want to say there is a website for the board and an email address, that you could send it into.
Yeah, Well, Greg, what I'm saying is, obviously you communicated and helped me back, get one of the older reports, right? I guess I'm asking for something more formally so that we can send it by letter. Who is tasked in the board to receive letters from groups and individuals regarding a request like this?
OPWDD would be.
Okay.
And so you can, there's a ASD Advisory Board at OPWDD.
I don't know, I'm asking for an individual. Yeah.
Oh, well, you can send it to me. Yeah, I
Okay.
think you got my email.
No, I'm
And
saying
I'll make sure that it gets to the board and officially, discussed. That's no problem. I'm sort of the board, a secretary, if you will. So
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you, Greg.
you're very welcome. Thanks for the idea.
Yeah, thank you for the input. Josie, any other hands raised?
Next, we have Kim Tucker. Kim, you're unmuted.
And I live in Westchester County, and I am in a self-direction. I'm an independent broker, and I have 3 children, and 2 with disabilities, but my 17-year-old son is autistic, limited verbally, with challenging behaviors, just to give you a little background. So I want to bring to everyone's attention, especially Commissioner Neifeld, if I said that wrong, I'm sorry, about what's going on with the lack of residential schools for kids with autism. So my son has not been in school in 2 years. 2 years. I fought my local school district for a couple years, well, really for like almost 5 years, to get him placed in residential because I knew they couldn't manage him. And it was a fight, and they finally agreed in 2019. And then by the time they sent out packets, and even before COVID, there was a huge problem with wait lists because the adults aging out had nowhere to go. So that goes to your point about trying to find integrative ways, for housing and things like that, which we know is needed, so that people move out of the residential facilities and then those open up those spots. But besides that, there's still not enough schools, appropriate schools, for the amount of children that are getting referred out of district. And now, especially with the autism rate is like 1 in 44, our public schools are not equipped to handle kids with behaviors. And so what ends up happening is, they get lost in the system because there's not even though he has self-direction, and I'm very savvy with what I try to get for him. And I've been advocating for him, when I left my real career, 10 years ago. This is my new career. It's hard for the kids in crisis and for kids that have behaviors, right? So I don't even know who to address. And I've been on many calls before and different workshops and speak with people that I know. And I just don't know who's the person in charge of getting this done, because no one's realizing what the problem is. Everybody's just talking about housing, which of course is a huge problem, but no one's looking that there's no schools. And there's no schools. I mean, my son is no neurotypical person would not be in school for 2 years. It wouldn't be happening. It's not right. And I mean, could I send him to Devereaux in Pennsylvania? Yeah, but I'm not going to send him someplace that kids are getting abused. I'm not going to do that. So we need answers here. And I just don't, and I'm willing to I hope one day when I get him in a good place, I want to, be able to work on this. But I don't know what to do right now. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that problem, and really to put it in your minds and think about that along with the housing that we're working on and staff pay and everything else.
Thank you, Kim. I don't know if there's anybody who wants to respond. I hear you that the pandemic really wreaked havoc on a lot of people, many kids in school, but particularly folks who are neurodiverse. So I hear you. Anybody on the board or Greg want to comment?
Michael Gilbert. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Neifeld, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, besides being a self-advocate, I am a special ed attorney in Westchester, actually. So I deal with this every day, fighting school districts. And the truth is, well, there's some things maybe this board can do in terms of recommendations. I think ultimately the problem is that school districts don't want to spend the money. From school districts, it becomes a financial issue. They fight and fight and fight and end up not providing services and end up paying more in the long run. And that's what I find. And that's why attorneys like me get clients. I think the other issue that we have found is that school districts will not place kids out of district in what are called in non-state approved schools. And state approved doesn't make it better or worse. The problem is that the state approval process has become so cumbersome. In my experience, a lot of schools that are great schools have decertified because they don't want to go through the paperwork process. And I wish Commissioner Soriano was on, because he and I have discussed this issue. But I think that's the ultimate issue, is that, you know, you make it hard for schools to become state approved. And if you want a non-state approved school, 90% of the time, the district's going to fight you and make you go to a hearing that is financially beneficial for attorneys like me, but not for families in the long run.
Thanks, Michael, for the
Definitely not
reaction.
an issue. Sorry.
Courtney, it's Carrie. I was just going to say thanks to, I think it was Kim, for sort of sharing your experience. And, you know, it's something that we do hear about. We are working, you know, with our partners in state education on, you know, this issue sort of at a, you know, larger level. But I think it's also an area that, you know, is ripe for advocacy. I don't know if Jill or Greg have anything they want to add, you know, but I want to just say that I appreciate you sharing, and it is something that, you know, we hear and we are, you know, discussing at least what, you know, OPWDD's role can be, given that it is a, you know, it's a school issue, but obviously it's important to us and to the people that we serve. So.
Yeah, this is Patrick. I think the secondary issue, Carrie, is that many of the residential schools have folks who are destined to go to OPWDD, and currently there's no placement for them, or they're in the process of getting a placement. But there's a large number of folks who are sitting inside the state at residential schools who don't have a placement in the adult world. So
That part, yes, absolutely, totally understand, and it, you know, we are working on that sort of in, you know, from a twofold approach. And again, Jill can add if I screw this up, but you know, one of the things that we're working on and will be making a change in the upcoming year is around the, you know, what level of need we assign to people who are aging out of residential schools. So they will go to the top of the list, the emergent need. They're not currently at the top of the list. So that's something that, you know, for our process, when we're processing, you know, and prioritizing, you know, need for residential, these kids aging out will go back to the top of the list where they used to be several years ago. Things were changed. We're going to change it back. And then the second piece is that internally we're working on, you know, strategizing to ready our state operation system to be, to be prepared to receive kids as they're aging out. And that's probably a place where Jill could say more, you know, if you want to, Jill. But it is, you know, that we are sort of trying to approach it from a, those two perspectives. Okay, I guess I didn't screw it up since Jill's not chiming in to correct me. So
I'm sorry, Carrie. I was speaking, but I was double muted. So sorry. You had it. You conveyed the content correctly. Thank you. And this is really an incredibly important issue. It's a challenging issue. I've had the pleasure of having discussions with a number of our residential school providers, including Patrick, on this topic. And again, we continue to really try to figure out ways to better be more proactive in our engagement. I think an important change is going to be modifying that emergency need designation for individuals aging out on our certified residential options policy framework and process. And again, from the state operations as a provider who can hopefully step up to serve some of those challenging individuals that are, there are challenges to identify appropriate adult service options for. Again, we're trying to work in partnership, certainly with the regional offices as well as with our voluntary agency partners to, again, create flow through the system so that we can together support the needs for individuals out there who are awaiting residential service options. So again, it's a very big puzzle that we are working actively to try to piece together, and to do so in a way that will be more responsive and timely to the needs of individuals that are seeking services. Thank you.
It's Michael Gilbert again. Let me know how I can be helpful with that, because I think the issue is also that so many kids, when they hit 18 or 21 and exit the special ed system, the parents are looking at them falling off a cliff. And I get a lot of calls from parents who are like, what's next?
Great. Well, a very good point. Thanks again, Kim, and thanks, Commissioner, for your response. Are there any other hands raised, Josie?
Now, next up, we have Laura Carmichael. Laura, you're unmuted.
Hi, I was curious whether this board is tasked with, doing anything about the lack of assessments, people providing assessments in rural areas. I'm in Plattsburgh, New York, and sometimes people are having to wait a year, for an evaluation, and then you can't really access services until you have the diagnosis. So I'm wondering if any of that federal funding could be granted to, these people doing the assessments, or so there's a way they could be diagnosed sooner and then get services sooner. And I'm not sure if that's something that you all are working on, but just curious. Thank you.
I defer to the commissioner or anybody else at OPWDD.
This is Jill. In terms of whether we at OPWDD are actively working on this, I would just point out that we have Article 16 clinics where we provide assessment services throughout the state. I think one of our challenges has been around assuring that we have licensed psychologists and other qualified professionals who can administer autism-specific diagnostic assessment tools. And that has really, it's been around challenges around recruiting and retaining the appropriately qualified professionals who can do those types of assessments and evaluations. I know that, I'm not sure if anyone is on today from Department of Health, but just on the early intervention side, again, I think there are some similar challenges around really having sufficient numbers of qualified professionals. That is certainly something that, as an agency, we're always looking for opportunities to partner with academic and other academic institutions to really partner and have provide field placement, internship opportunities, things of that nature, to again introduce up-and-coming professionals to working with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities more broadly, and certainly with those who are neurodiverse more specifically. So again, this is an area that I think nationally has become quite challenging just in terms of accessing those qualified professionals.
Thanks, Jill.
Next, we have Angela Hope Woosie, and I'm going to apologize if I pronounce that wrong.
That was just fine. Thank you. I am a service provider out of Brooklyn, and I have, one area that I'm constantly challenged with. Invariably, people will say in their life plan meetings that they want to learn how to read. And I would say a lot of these folks that I'm dealing with maybe had a hard time in school and special ed, and maybe their behaviors were such that the teachers just did not teach them how to read. Oh, sorry. This whole thing. There was no phone calls. And so now that they're in their 30s and their 40s, they're very much more settled, and they really want to learn how to read, but they're not reading obviously at an 8th grade level, so they can't get in these different type of programs that are all over the city. And there is literally no program that I am aware of, and I have truly looked, to assist someone who is an adult, who has a low reading level, and who has the capacity to learn how to read. And the reason why I know that they have the capacity to learn how to read is because through community habilitation, we have seen progress. but my staff is definitely not qualified to teach someone how to read. They can assist someone from just what they basically know, but they truly are not qualified. So I am, wishing for and hoping that someone will create some kind of program, or maybe some of this money could be used to create a program that captures that person that is right in the middle. And I would also want to say that I don't really want one of these large agencies to do it. For instance, like, no offense to YAI, but a YAI type of agency is not what I'm talking about, because there's such a stigma attached to that type of agency. And the adults that I'm talking about, they don't want to go to a program in their neighborhood, and they definitely don't want to go to a YAI type of program. So this would be something that would have to be done in partnership. In my perfect world, it would be in partnership with CUNY or with SUNY, where the individual participating in it, when they say they're going to class, they're going to a class not at YAI, but they're going to a class at a CUNY facility or a SUNY facility, which has far more dignity attached to it. So that pretty much is what I wanted to share. And I will say that I did find such a program as I was looking on the internet, but it was in Australia. And so I had one of those Zoom calls with the people from Australia, and it seemed like a perfect model. But of course, it was a little impractical for us. So that's my contribution to what I think is needed. Thank you.
Thank you,
Can
Angela.
can I respond to that?
Please.
So I'm curious, Angela, whether or not you have connected with any adult education programs. And ironically, I just did a presentation to the New York State Board of Regents on Monday about the various adult education programs across the state and the literacy zones that we have. And this is what we do. One of the things that we do is basic adult literacy skills. And we can provide those services to individuals with disabilities. So, I would be happy to connect with you offline, to connect you to our adult education office. If you're in Brooklyn, we fund programs in Brooklyn, including, and we provide supports to libraries, have programs, public schools, colleges. So there is a robust adult education system in New York State. What I'm hearing though is that there's a gap, that adult education system is not connected to adults with disabilities based on the experience that you're having, and we can address that.
Yes, that is the experience that I'm having. Plenty of programs, welcoming programs, but people get in them, and then within a record time, they're no longer interested in going to it because it really does not meet their specific type of need. So yes, I will definitely reach out to you. I don't know how to reach you, but I will.
If you send an email to the mailbox, Greg, could that be directed to me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So to the autism, Greg, can you repeat that mailbox again?
Yep, it is ASD Advisory Board at opwdd.ny.gov, and I'll slow down and say it slowly. A, S is in Sam, D is in David, A, D is in David, V, I, S is in Sam, ORY, board, BOARD, at opwdd.ny.gov.
Okay, thank you.
And I will forward it to Salon.
Thank you very much, Greg.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Okay, next
again.
we have Lucille Rossi. Lucille, you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you all. I have a daughter who is 21 now, and we have self-directed services. And I've noticed through our dealings with different aspects of OPWDD for things like budgets and things like that, it seems like there's a lot of systems issues with your, like, say, technology, and I'm sure you have a gazillion things right now on your list to work on, but I was speaking to another parent whose professional work is in technology, who had reason to work with OPWDD, who explained that there's something like 30 legacy systems that all are sort of like trying to talk to each other, and some of the things are like 30 years old, for example. And I was wondering if there's any plans to sort of upgrade and optimize some of the systems. And just to give you a simple example, right now I'm doing a self-direction budget adjustment of $300. I'm moving money from 3 small line items and moving 100 each into 1 line item. It technically seems like it should take, what, 20 seconds to approve that, but it doesn't. And that means that for the, you know, it takes months, basically. Even though it's such a small number, I know there's a process, but I was thinking some kind of systems improvement where that could be done on like the broker's desktop, and it poofs to the FI, to OPWDD, and done in, you know, like a very short amount of time, rather than having, I think it's something like 7 to 10 people have to look at that to get it done. That's costing OPWDD and us all time and money for all these people to be involved in something that's so simple. And I believe it harks back to the issue that the systems are antiquated. So my request is there any opportunity to upgrade the systems to help us all operate more effectively and efficiently for our participants?
This is Greg. I can say that I believe some of the federal dollars that were coming in, there was two parts of it. One was our Medicaid dollars that the commissioner had spoke of earlier. There is some money from that is going to upgrade the OPWDD infrastructure, computer infrastructure. And there is also some money, I believe prior to that, there was an earlier federal package to provide technology dollars to New York State, and some of that is also being used for some IT upgrades for OPWDD. So I think I think every OPWD employee in the state agrees with you. Technology needs to be upgraded.
I'm sure they do. I just was wondering what the plans were. You know, that somebody in my professional life once told me, if you can help your staff workers be 10% more effective, that makes a big difference, right? And 10% isn't hard to do. So something that takes an hour today, if you can make it take 50 minutes instead, you're saving, you know, you have like, you know, 10% more people, right? So I wish you luck with that. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Michael Smith.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes, my name is Michael Smith. I'm the executive director with the Foundation for Autism Information Research. I've been doing a lot of legislative advocacy and policy the last, 17 years or so now. And, you know, there's a lot of challenges. I know there's a lot of good people, you know, trying to make the right thing happen. But I guess I'm really concerned. Nobody really addressed the new CDC numbers that just came out. 1 in 44. We know those numbers are underreported. If we look at our own SEDCAR special education data from the New York State Education Department, and we look at Bronx County, 1 in 28 kids. If we look at Richmond County, 1 in 28 kids with autism. These aren't high functioning individuals. We're talking about 40% who are nonverbal, 33% who have epilepsy, who have seizures. And then when we start looking at the adult population that continues to grow every year, you know, we're looking at about an 88% unemployment rate among those who are actually seeking employment. Assemblyman Avenanti had a full day hearing, as many of you know, back on October 21st on this issue of employment. One of the things, based upon hearing the board today, is we're back to the same issue of you cannot manage and lead effectively for what you cannot measure. And so back in 2018, Governor Cuomo signed a bill, A273, it was Tom Avenanti's bill with Governor Parker, directing OPWDD to submit a report to the legislature on the cost of autism in New York State. You cannot presently do that. I don't know how you can think that you can manage what you can't measure. And if you're looking for help with the legislature and through the budget negotiation process, you don't have any, the legislature is asking, and I think rightfully so, they're asking for this data. And this bill was signed a couple years ago, and it was asked at multiple hearings with former Commissioner Kastner, and nobody has complied with this. And as the rates continue to grow in the recent CDC report, we're talking a 23% increase every 2 years. If you look at the New York State data, it's been going up 23% every 2 years for the last 20 years or so. And it's not broader diagnostic criteria. In fact, I work closely with the ADDM, the Autism Developmental Disabilities Monitoring Network, which is the CDC's autism group that does a lot of this. And Walter Zaharodny, who runs the New Jersey Autism Study, has said repeatedly, and the other researchers there, that we are seeing the widest increase in autism among those with the highest level of impairment. So we're not talking about broader diagnostic criteria of those on the higher functioning end or Asperger's end of the spectrum. We're talking the largest increase in autism right now is among those kids who are nonverbal, who have a high level of need. And I think it comes back to being able to measure the magnitude of the crisis before you can make any type of intelligent decisions. And look, I'm all for a different flag or symbol if somebody wants to do that. But the fact that we haven't addressed the increasing rates and budget crisis and everything else is of great concern right now. And I'm kind of wondering, where we're at right now. Are we going to have a statewide hearing on this?
Yeah, Michael, this is Greg. I think I can answer a lot of your questions. And thank you. You do bring out a very good point. So that report, as you mentioned, was due April 1st to the legislature. So it's about 6 months behind now. I'm involved with some aspects of that and helping to coordinate it. So I can say that, one of the issues was that there was staff were pretty much pulled off of everything except for COVID for a number of months prior to the report being due. So we did miss the April 1st deadline. We're working on it now. Hopefully we should have it very soon. I would like to mention, though, that the OPWD Medicaid spend data is on the OPWD website for the past 5 years. On there, go to the By the Numbers page and at the bottom, and it has it broken down by diagnosis. It has it broken down by how much was spent per individual with autism, how many people with the primary diagnosis of autism have been served over the past 5 years, the total expenditure dollars by program, et cetera. So that gives you a pretty good picture, but it doesn't have the whole picture. As you said, the legislature adds in state education department dollars and Department of Health dollars as well to get the fuller picture. But you're right, it is overdue, it's important. And you're right that the numbers, I can tell you the preliminary numbers are going up, and hopefully we'll have something actionable. And I was actually thinking the board would probably want to review that report, as soon as it comes out as well. So thank you, and I hope that helps answer your question as to where it is. It is an important report.
Next up, we have Barbara Catone. Barbara?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
At first, I'd like to thank the board, and I appreciate all your work, and hopefully we'll be making more strides. I'm a parent of a son who is in residential currently, and again, I have to hit home that you can make all the programs you want, but if the money is not just temporary, we need long-term solutions on salary, we're never going to get anywhere. So I just want to know as a parent, how as parents can we advocate really hard to hit home that our DSPs really need to get paid to support when they're in the agencies, because it's when they're in Compab and they're home, they seem to get more money and they get one-on-one service for that. And then if they're in a residential, because that's where they need to be, that salary is less, and they're like on a 3-to-1 ratio. So I don't understand how these equations even add up. And how can I, as a parent, advocate for equal wages across the board for these guys?
Thank you, Barbara. I think we all agree with your comments and the need for better wages. I don't know if anybody has anything to add. Okay.
The last hand we have up is Josh Garrett. Josh, you're unmuted.
Hi. So, yes, I too am on the autism spectrum, and I have been trying to find staff for my self-directed plan, and I've been having a really difficult time, and same with my my broker and my fiscal intermediary, and I'm also a member too of the Self-Advocacy Association of New York State, also known as SANI. And we have also been pushing to, we've also been pushing to get more, accessible transportation programs out there. It's for all people with disabilities across the state. And Sandy's does a lot of wonderful things too. But yeah, I have been hearing too from others on the autism spectrum that they too have been having difficulty with finding staff and even keeping any staff on. And and a lot of my friends and I just don't quite understand what's going on with that. I mean, we put our flyers out there and we all have good rates, but even then we're still having a hard time as it is. Because I know two of my friends really need the staff because they don't really have any other caregivers in the area. A lot of their family live in the next county over, and same thing kind of goes for me too. Because I was also getting ComHab service from another agency, and and that agency is now I lost one of my staff from that agency due to they had something medically happen to them. So now I'm down to one staff, and I need some staff support during the rest of the time. And the agency that my ComHab staff is through, they are having a very difficult time with trying to help find other staff who could work with me. And I don't really know what else more to do. And so same with my care coordinator and my broker.
Well, thank you for letting us know. I think we have your email address based on your comments today, and I think Greg or somebody from OPWDD will follow up with you directly. But we also, your comments about the importance of staff is really important. It's makes or breaks your life, your day, your everything. So Thank you. And thank you for your self-advocacy as well. Love the Self-Advocacy Association. I'm glad that you're involved. That's a great way to be more proactive. So thank you for that.
I've been
Josie?
involved with them for just about the past 15 years.
That's awesome. I hope you get an award for the number of years, because that's a lot of advocacy right there. So Josie, do we have any other questions in the queue? Okay.
We have one last person. They just put their hand up. Valerie Shaw. Valerie, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to the board for all of the overview. My name is Valerie Shaw. I'm VP of Nursing here at HRC. Just wanted to find out what is the best contact number or email address to reach someone to clarify questions that can come out on newly released ADMs, especially those that are medically related.
We can get you the name and address of our Director of Nursing and Health Services at OPWDD.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I attempted to send emails, but maybe I do have the wrong information because I've been trying for a little bit to get some response. So that would be extremely helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I think that wraps up our meeting today. I want to again thank the commissioner for being on today and also fielding some questions, and to Mike and Josh for their presentations as well. Wishing everybody a safe, healthy, and happy holidays and New Year's. I believe we will be convening again in April. Is that right, Greg?
Yeah, that's correct. We'll get a date out soon to people. April will be a good time. Hopefully there will be a state budget in time, done by then, and so we'll have some more information. And I think that there's some legislative stuff I'm going to have to alert the board to over the next few weeks, as well as more bills go through the legislature. So board members, please keep an eye on your email.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Be well.
Thank you.